Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be doing a review of Loki, Episode 2. Before going into my review, though, please be sure to smash that like button, hit that subscribe, and also that bell notification. That way you know every time a new video or live stream goes live on the channel. Also, light up that fire button if you're watching on Odyssey, and check out my website, ombreviews.com, where you can find links to various platforms, including different ways to support me. All right, we are now into the second episode of the series Loki. If you saw my first review of the first episode, you would have seen that I was not a very big fan of this at all. Mostly because in the first episode, it basically tries to convolute the plot, which was already convoluted during Endgame, even more so than it was before, by doing things like, oh, and by the way, this is going to be spoiler-filled, and so you have been warned. It's been in the thumbnail and title and all that stuff, and so you, again, proceed at your own risk. Anyway, so the first episode, just as a recap, basically indicated that nothing matters. That nothing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe matters, that Infinity Stones, which have been built up for years and years and years, are no less than paperweights, according to the TVA, because now there is this all-powerful timeline. There's this sacred timeline that is kept by the Time Lord Timekeepers, who are supposedly all-knowing and all-seeing people, and yet somehow, someway, aberrations from the timeline can happen by people choosing to do things that they don't know is wrong in the first place, and then being put on trial, that whole thing. Again, just complete and utter nonsense. Just people trying to sound smarter than what they actually are, and a lot of people will watch it and buy it and be like, oh, this is fun. Time is fun, right? Time travel. Oh, yay. Another version of time travel. And this one just falls flat on its face after that first episode. In this second episode, guess what? We get more talking, more explanation, more exposition, as they say, into what this whole process is all about. Loki is now being brought on as kind of this pseudo-agent of the TVA, and what he finds out is that the variant of Loki, because this was the reveal at the end of the first episode, the variant of Loki is probably hiding in catastrophic events, because if you happen to go to an event in the timeline of which a catastrophic event is going to happen, if you do anything to disrupt the timeline, nothing will actually register. You actually won't affect the timeline at all, because anyone who is present during that time is already going to die. So let's say you were to go to, in this case, they go to Pompeii, and it's right before Mount Vesuvius explodes. Let's say you were to go there and you were to punch someone in the face there, or even kill someone there. That would not cause any disruption in the timeline, because everyone there is already going to die. Even though, as we've already pointed out, this universe hinges on there being a timeline of which things are expected to happen, and free will is essentially outside of the window, and yet some people sometimes can still use free will to do things that are not a part of said timeline, and yet also are not known by these ultimate Time Lords, who even in this episode, one of the characters literally says, if they will it, it will be so. Which then again raises the entire question of, why does this show, why does this universe even matter at this point? And even though I will say I actually liked this episode a bit more, just because there was a little bit more going on in this episode, you were going to different locations, with the reveal at the end being, of course, something that we all saw coming, something that had been already kind of leaked and hinted at before all of this stuff went down. By the way, there's a female Loki now, yes, so there's the variant they're looking for. Spoiler alert, it's female Loki. She exists now, and what is her great line? It's not about you. Talking there to Tom Hiddleston's Loki, which tells us that the entire series Loki is not about Loki whatsoever, let alone about Tom Hiddleston, which basically seems to indicate that female Loki is probably going to have a very central role to play next episode. I imagine we'll probably get some type of origin story or some type of explanation into who she is and how she exists and how it is that Loki, who is a historical character, can somehow be a woman, and not just appearing as a woman, but is an actual woman nonetheless. Oh man. Yeah. So even though, as I said, there are some things story-wise in here that are interesting, the acting, again, is very well done. on all parts. Every person is doing the very best that they can do with the material that they're given. The issue comes down to story. The issue comes down with the story being so complex and convoluted. And someone in the last video also said, well, what's so hard to understand? It's not that it's hard to understand. It's when I'm saying it's convoluted, what I mean is that you can understand it, and then in your explanation of it and in you going through the basic premises of the plot and of the world that's being built here, you realize that the show itself is basically and essentially saying that the show itself doesn't matter. So it gets to the point of, what is the purpose of even watching the show? What is the purpose of anyone doing anything in the future of the MCU if everything is predetermined? And if you somehow, some way are able to do something that's not predetermined, however the heck that works, and start to deviate from the timeline, these agents who have been magically created by these all-powerful beings, who if they're so all-powerful, how and why do they need to create said beings? Not to mention, something else I realized at this point was, you have created these beings, right? You have created this agency, the TVA, to help you, even though you're all-powerful and you really shouldn't need to do that. In creating them, it means you also have to have created the facilities that they use, the weapons that they use, the technology that they use, or have had some hand in it. One of those items that they have is literally a stick that essentially evaporates you from the timeline, that essentially resets you. So if these sub-creatures who have been created by said Time Lords have created these sub-creatures who have these weapons that can wipe someone off the timeline, it would seem to be, using common sense, to say that one of these so-called Time Lords should be able to do that on their own. Should be able to just say, oh, you're gone. If they're so strong and so powerful enough to create the timeline itself and to maintain said timeline and to determine the timeline and to be able to know exactly what is going to happen, even though it's already been explained that they also can't know everything that's going to happen, but they have technology that can detect when things that have not supposed to have happened, have this technology to essentially wipe someone off of the map or to reset them or whatever it is that they want to call it. What again is the purpose of the show? What is then the purpose of this entire universe? Because to me, all I'm seeing are 3 Time Lords who are essentially sitting around doing nothing as female Loki is creating havoc. By now, at the end of the episode, the big reveal is that her whole plan all along has been to steal all of these resets, and by stealing these reset bombs, essentially, that destroy life and somehow fix the timeline, that she's been collecting them so that she can then send them to different parts of time that were not supposed to have those sent, and then creating so many variations that now the timeline has begun to basically come apart. That has been her big plan. What that leads to, what that means, I don't know. Do I care? Not really. But obviously, this is something that we're going to talk about on Friday Night Tights, and it's something that I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to talk about and have questions about as well. But in the end, this show is just, it's such a mess. And it really comes down to the fact that it's trying to make itself sound so smart. The writers and creators behind this project, they wanted to create a smart show that makes you think about free will, that makes you think about autonomy, that makes you think about time, that makes you think about God. But they decided to make everything so convoluted that their own story contradicts itself, and even worse, makes its story completely irrelevant. So why does this series even exist then? It's a question that I think all of us need to ask. So, needless to say, still don't like the show. And unless there's a big reveal that none of this is true and that these Time Lords aren't actually real and all this other stuff, if that kind of stuff comes out and is able then to explain all this stuff going on, okay, fine. Maybe the writing will end up having been brilliant. But as of now, the writing is a circular logic mess and is, I don't think, worth anyone's time. Do I think it's going to get better? Probably not, especially now since they've decided, once again, Disney decided to, instead of having the story be about who it's supposed to be about, in this case, Tom Hiddleston's Loki, has now made it clear that, oh no, it's going to be about her story. She is smarter and better than everyone else. It's getting old. Seriously, the messaging, the very clear political messaging of these shows, of these movies, it is just getting so old at this point. And you have a show that had a lot of potential to be really cool. You had a show that had a lot of potential to be something that was worth watching. And instead, you tried to make yourselves sound too smart that in the end, you've just made yourselves dumb. And us dumber for having watched it. For those of us that have watched it. But anyway, let me know your thoughts about Loki Episode 2. I know there's some people out there that are going to have liked it. People that I like and respect like it. And I think part of that probably is that they suspend their belief and they're, able just to keep certain things out of their mind. But when you really just think about it and sit down and think about what this says about time and choices and everything like that, it makes everything completely irrelevant. And it's hard to care about a series, about a character, or anything to do with this show or anything in the MCU hereafter with this kind of storytelling being existing in this universe. So unless they fix it in some major reveal, other than, of course, Loki now being a woman, I don't know exactly how they're going to do that. But let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button, light up that fire button. If you're watching on Odyssey, you're all amazing and beautiful people. I am continuing to do my review of various old school retro Japanese films. I need to do a movie review for Lone Wolf and Cub. Just finished that one earlier today. And I'm now into the fourth or fifth of the... No, I'm in the fifth of the Zatoichi films as well. And look forward to those reviews. Anyway, you guys are amazing, beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my June Patreon and Subscribe Star members: Andrew Hoyle, Biffer the Hobbit, Brian P., Dion, Don Bruno de la Mancha, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toone, Jonathan Carney, Laura the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, and rather Teresa Martin is Miss Martin Muses now, Tina Bojan, Tina B., and Washington Madranda. Thank y'all very much for being my supporters on Patreon. And to my Subscribe Star peeps, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stand For, John B., Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / The New Number 2, J. Rod the Beer Guru, Nevanon G. Adams, and ZK Man. Thank you all very much for being my Subscribe Star members. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream, please consider joining on Patreon or Subscribe Star. You also get access at other tiers to things like a bi-monthly podcast, bi-weekly, twice a month podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, which is a lot of fun. There's also a tier in which you can join me once a month for the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, where you all get to, at that level, join me for discussions, talk about any projects that you might be working on, or just hang out and have a good time. It's a lot of fun. And also, too, for many of those levels, you also get access to a giveaway section on the Discord server, where you get access to giveaways of things like 4K movies, digital codes, and tons of other stuff like that. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check out the links in the description and sign up over on Patreon and Subscribe Star. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.